Halloween night fell over the quiet town of Grey Ridge, like a dark curtain sliding across the world, dressing every street, tree, and shadow with an eerie glow that made even the bravest residents hurry indoors. The fog rolled in thick waves, clinging to the cracked sidewalks and swirling around the old lampposts that flickered as if the electricity itself feared the approaching night. But despite the warnings whispered through the wind, four teenagers, Ethan, Mara, Dylan, and Jesse, weren't heading home. Instead, they made their way toward the edge of town, where Hollowgrave House loomed like a forgotten monster. The enormous Victorian mansion, abandoned for over 60 years, still carried the weight of every rumor, legend, and nightmare ever told about it. Children claimed they heard screams coming from the windows at night. Teenagers dared each other to touch the rusted gate. Adults avoided even driving past it. And tonight, on Halloween, the four friends planned to film the house for their animated horror story project, hoping to capture something spooky enough to impress the entire school. Ethan, always the storyteller, recorded the walk with his camera, trying to sound brave while his hands shook slightly. Mara clutched her drawing pad because she planned to sketch scenes for their animation. Later, though her heart hammered loudly enough to drown out her own thoughts. Dylan, who normally joked about everything, kept glancing behind them as if expecting someone to be following. And Jessie, the youngest and most sensitive, whispered that she could hear humming coming from the house, even though they were still several meters away. When they finally reached the rusted iron gates of Hollowgrave House, a cold wind brushed past them, rattling the iron bars as though welcoming them. Ethan gulped and pushed the gate open, and the squeal it made stretched across the yard and crawled into the fog. The instant their shoes touched the dead grass, the air seemed to shift, becoming thicker, colder, almost watchful. The house rose before them like an enormous black shape, its windows shattered, its wooden walls peeling, its front door slightly open as if it were breathing. Mara whispered that the house looked alive, and Dylan muttered that maybe it was. Ethan walked up the stone path, filming everything, feeling his chest tighten with each step. When they reached the door, Jessie tugged at his sleeve, saying she didn't want to go inside. But before any of them could comfort her, a sudden gust of wind slammed the front door fully open. The sound echoed like a thunderclap. Their flashlights swept the entryway, revealing a long corridor, lined with faded wallpaper that seemed to curl like dried skin. Portraits hung crooked on the walls, their faces scratched out violently. The wood beneath their feet groaned with every step, as if the floorboards were whispering warnings. Ethan focused the camera on the staircase ahead. Screen flickered and captured what looked like a little girl standing at the top of the stairs. Her dress was white but dirty, her hair long and tangled, her head tilted sharply to the side. Ethan blinked, and she was gone. He didn't say anything, but Jessie grabbed his arm and whispered that she had seen the girl too. The four of them walked deeper into the house. Their footsteps echoed unnaturally, bouncing off the walls in patterns that didn't match their rhythm. Dylan pointed his flashlight toward a doorway, revealing a dusty living room with a cracked fireplace and an enormous, broken mirror on the wall. The mirror reflected them, but something was wrong. Mara noticed it first. In the reflection, there were 5 figures. Behind Jessie stood a tall, thin shadow, completely faceless, its fingers long and sharp, slowly reaching toward her. Mara gasped and pulled Jessie away. When they looked behind them, nothing was there, but Jessie shivered violently, insisting she felt fingers touching her shoulder. Before they could decide what to do, the entire house seemed to exhale. The walls expanded and contracted, the wallpaper shifting as if there were something crawling beneath it. A deep rumbling sounded from the floor, shaking dust from the ceiling. Dylan whispered that they should leave, but when they turned back toward the entrance, the hallway was no longer the same. It had stretched impossibly far, the front door now just a tiny glowing outline in the distance. Ethan said the house was playing with them. Jesse whimpered and held on to Mara as they moved cautiously deeper into the house. Dylan swung his flashlight toward the dining room, and they all froze as every chair around the long wooden table suddenly screeched backward at once, scraping across the floor as though invisible guests had just stood up together. The noise was so sharp and violent that Jessie covered her ears and cried. Before Ethan could comfort her, a childlike giggle echoed through the room. It wasn't a sweet giggle, it was distorted, stretched, wrong. Ethan slowly lifted the camera toward the far corner of the room, and there stood the little ghost girl again. She didn't move. She only stared at them with hollow eyes and a twisted smile. Her body twitched suddenly, her head cracking to the other side at an unnatural angle. Dylan stepped back too fast and stumbled, his flashlight rolling across the floor. It stopped right at the ghost girl's feet, illuminating her pale face. In a blink, she dissolved into a burst of smoke-like static. Ethan kept filming as whispers filled the room, growing louder and louder. They didn't sound like one voice, like dozens. The whispers slithered across the walls, around their feet, through their hair, whispering their names, whispering warnings, whispering commands. Jessie began crying, saying someone was breathing behind her neck. Mara pulled her close. Ethan turned toward the staircase, and his camera caught a massive shadow slithering across the wall like a living creature. Long arms reached upward, claws scraping the ceiling. Then came the footsteps. Heavy, slow, thundering footsteps from the second floor. Each step made the house shake. Jessie screamed. Dylan shouted that they had to hide, and Ethan tried to steady the camera even though his hands shook uncontrollably. The footsteps grew louder. The whispers grew deeper. The shadows stretched across the floors and walls like black rivers. Mara dropped her sketchbook, and it flipped open on its own. A ghostly red handprint appeared on the blank page. The house moaned, creaked, and shifted all around them, as if awakening after decades of hunger. Ethan pointed the camera toward the stairs as the unseen thing moved closer. He whispered into the camera, begging whoever found this footage to understand that Hollowgrave House wasn't just haunted, it was alive, and it wanted them. He begged viewers to subscribe to their channel so more people could hear their story, because if they didn't make it out, the only way their voice would survive was if people shared and followed their journey. His voice shook as he said that this was only the beginning, and the house wasn't done with them yet.